What is it that defines a brand? How do you take a name that's been around since the 1960s and cemented in all facets of media for over half a century, and yet keep it more relevant than ever? Hot Wheels is a name that practically every soul alive is familiar with. I can guarantee most of you watching this have a Hot Wheels core memory of some sort, due to a favorite car, book, movie, TV series, or game. Hot Wheels is one of very few brands that throughout its existence fully understands their fanbase. Whether that be diehard collector or casual Walmart shopper, Hot Wheels has managed to continually maintain an aura of appeal without selling out or changing its mission. The vast change in entertainment since Hot Wheels' origin led to entirely new ways to experience the universe, namely the iconic Acceleracers, which has become a staple of both my own and many others' childhood. Or, more specifically, what we want to focus on for this video, video games. The origins of Hot Wheels games dates us back to 1984, almost 40 years ago, with Hot Wheels on the Commodore 64. While rough and extraordinarily simple, allowing for an open, abstract world in which you could perform basic minigames, still allowed the brand to take a step into this new form of media. An almost 15-year hiatus later, we were introduced to Hot Wheels Stunt Track Driver for the Windows CD-ROM. While very limited by the hardware at the time and in a result being very mechanically simple, only allowing for basic positioning of your car and some goofy air stunts, this was visually one of the raddest video games of the time, with pre-rendered racetracks of bedrooms, greenhouses, a kingdom-sized sandbox, and even the inside of a casino which, well, was more of a living room, let's be honest. The concept of Stunt Track Driver was a phenomenal base to build off of, and that's exactly what the early 2000s were for Hot Wheels in the gaming medium. There was some good old-fashioned weirdness with slot car racing, which performed about as well as you'd expect. The games did eventually iron out into a solid 3D track racer format. Sure, they weren't as polished as the Need for Speed Hot Pursuits of the time, but they made up for it with the grandiose nature of the races as a whole. Oh, and for some reason they all had this obsession with where if your player vehicle gets hit enough, you explode. There's also the bizarre case of Planet Hot Wheels, which was an online social media gaming and forum website. Again, went about as well as you could expect. The site was shut down in 2004, and due to the nature of the time period, not much footage remains of the site, resulting in a weird and wacky case of Hot Wheels lost media. But that's a topic deserving of a video of its own. There's one game in particular I wanted to highlight here, that being World Race. Taking place in the same universe as my beloved Acceleracers, World Race was one of the most content-packed Hot Wheels games virtually ever. You could choose from all 35 racers from the Highway 35 movie, and race on over 15 different tracks. World Race also strayed away from that pattern of playing as toy cars, instead dropping you into the universe itself with real people. Mix all of this content with all of the lessons learned from the last half a decade of Hot Wheels games, and you've got a phenomenal package. If I could ask for any of the games throughout Hot Wheels history to get a spiritual successor, it's definitely World Race. The vibe and the story of Acceleracers universe is one that would translate harmoniously into the video game medium. Though, that's also a project that would take a lot of faith to recreate Acceleracers without watering down any of it. And it's more of a pipe dream considering complications with Scirocco's voice actor Kirby Morrow tragically no longer being with us, and just recreating 2000s media in the modern day is near impossible to do without being cheesier than your average French dish. Acceleracers fanboy tangent aside, there's one more 2000s game that needs a minute under the spotlight. Hot Wheels Beat That is debatably the most memorable of all Hot Wheels games. Returning back to the toy car structure, though with some inspiration from Mario Kart and MotorStorm, incorporating power-ups and battling your opponents, mixed in with easily the greatest track designs in Hot Wheels gaming history. The racing itself wasn't the greatest thing ever, but Beat That was so deeply committed to exuding excess through every facet of its presentation that you can ignore the technicalities. That 2000s edginess is something I find so enthralling to look back on, an almost paradoxical universe to where we're at a decade and a half later. And speaking of that same time frame, Hot Wheels entered itself into a serious dark age with its games, desperately trying to capitalize on trends instead of staying true to the company's mission and identity. The first of these being Hot Wheels World's Best Driver, following the extreme sports trend of the early 2010s, ditching the theatrical and ebullient track design for dreary, defoliated, widespread landscapes, and focusing on basic and open-ended minigames. World's Best Driver was the last proper big-release Hot Wheels game before the era of mobile games. The lack of player control and lackluster game design made these fall flat in comparison to even games like the Asphalt series, which escalated dramatically in popularity in the same time frame. This dark age from the end of the 2000s all the way up to 2021 was an over decade-long travesty, but one that had a very important lesson to be learned, and the student of which was about to have its first test. Bringing back a series from the graveyard is, as we know by now, completely hit or miss. Changing too much often leaves those tied to a nameplate scratching their heads at who it's even designed for, and trying to capture a golden era through half-baked nostalgia bait, Hot Wheels had the privilege of sitting back and watching others take the hit, and using its competitors' failures as lessons in direction. In February of 2021, Hot Wheels Unleashed was revealed, seemingly managed to capture lightning in a bottle, at least conceptually. The DNA of Beat That, Stunt Track Driver, and Golden Era Hot Wheels games was clearly apparent, but with a new coat of paint and some new bells and whistles. September of the same year, Hot Wheels Unleashed blasts onto the scene, delighting leagues of Hot Wheels fans worldwide. A brand new Hot Wheels with the biggest and most varied car list, tracks which embody the spirit of games of old, a more in-depth than ever track creator, expansive campaign, and good, solid multiplayer. This was the game to prove that marketing directly to your core fanbase clearly worked on the surface level. But why exactly was this? Well, let's take a closer look into Hot Wheels Unleashed and see just why 2021's shock release is so important even to this day. When you first launch Hot Wheels Unleashed, the game presents you immediately with what you'll be spending most of your time in: Hot Wheels City Rumble. City Rumble is, in short, your campaign experience. It's commendable that Hot Wheels Unleashed doesn't waste your time with unnecessary bloated filler cutscenes or exposition for a world and characters you or the developers don't care about. From the first minute launching the game and getting into the opening race, it's all done and set within a minute or two. In terms of campaign structure, Hot Wheels Unleashed keeps things pretty simple, which is mostly to its benefit. You've only got a handful of event types: standard races, time trials, and boss races. With those first two, I'm someone who tends to criticize racers that don't have much variation or creativity in their events. So why does Hot Wheels Unleashed not fall under that same umbrella? The most prominent reason is that you never feel like you're doing the exact same race every time. There's plenty of contract in track bases, obstacles and traps, loops and track pieces, and of course, what your ops drive. This serves as a great lesson for games such as Forza Horizon or the latest Need for Speed titles, which play things far too safe, leaving each race almost indistinguishable from each other, with zero learning curves or development as you go through the game. The basic race design and principles are identical in your first and final race, which is a genuine shame. Going back to Hot Wheels Unleashed, there's one last event type we wanted to highlight, that being boss races. These are not only much longer than your standard events, but really up the difficulty, requiring you to finish first or else the race is marked as incomplete. But that's easier said than done. These toss you into some easily recognizable Hot Wheels bosses, such as the T-Rex, Nitrobot, or Yeti. You have to avoid traps from each main boss type, as well as other racers, the track trying to shoot you off, and enjoy the longer race time as well. The intensity is here in full swing, and it's awesome. City Rumble isn't all perfect, however. I still think it would have been a nice cherry on top to at least have some sort of a Hot Wheels Cup or goal to work towards, as the premise in Hot Wheels Unleashed has absolutely zero payoff when not in races, and no conclusion whatsoever. And I do find the organization of races to be thrown together far too lackadaisically, which leads to you jumping all over the place to try and tie up any loose ends or find secrets, which is admittedly a bit of a hassle. Going through these event types in City Rumble is a treat and a test. Hot Wheels Unleashed does a fantastic job of scaling opponent AI and fiddling with target times for time trials, really narrowing down your chances of winning as you progress closer to the end. And in turn, you get not only rewarded with that glorious satisfaction after spending 30 minutes on an insane time trial objective, but with plenty of spoils as well. Completing each race rewards you with money, gears, and occasionally blind boxes and customization parts, which leads us into some of Hot Wheels Unleashed's most divisive attributes. Cars in Hot Wheels Unleashed are for the most part handled exceedingly well. Starting with what you actually have on offer, this is easily the largest and most varied list in Hot Wheels history. Of course, we wouldn't be complete without classics throughout Hot Wheels' half a century-long run, alongside real-life supercars, some goofy or unique rides like the hot dog car, which was the fastest car in the game at launch. Yeah. DLC was also tremendous, adding in cars from Hot Wheels' own excursions like Acceleracers, to some interesting partnerships with Looney Tunes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, okay that's a shake, and Ryu. From Streets, The cars themselves are great, and the attention to detail in these models is out of this world good. They've all got fully modeled interiors, underbodies, and chassis, so they truly look just like your real cars. I personally really love how different materials and paint finishes shine on each one of your cars. It's so much fun building your arsenal of these legendary cars, but there's one major issue when it comes to collecting them: blind boxes. I understand the appeal and mindset of making these like opening a Hot Wheels mystery box as a kid, but it just doesn't translate well into the video game medium. If there was at least an option to buy the specific car you wanted through a vendor or store in the game, instead of a randomized few in the specialty shop, blind boxes would be a little bit of casual fun on the side. But instead, as the primary way of purchasing and collecting new cars, this is a major misstep. In terms of upgrades and customization, Hot Wheels Unleashed is all about simplicity. You can spend those gears you've earned through completing races on upgrading your car's stats, which is great for those looking to keep your cars competitive for longer. But it is slightly disappointing to me that you can't pick and choose what to upgrade and how far you can take it, but that's something to work on for the next game. Customizability with your cars is understandably kept to a minimum. These are of course icons of Hot Wheels history, and Mattel doesn't want the Unbound fanbase going wild on Bone Shaker, now do they? At least the livery editor provides those looking to add a little flair to their cars with a respectable amount of options. You can change the material and color of a car's body, chassis, wheels, tires, and glass, and finish it all off with some stickers and decals. It would be a neat touch to have some different wheel options or something really simple, at least for some of the manufacturer cars or non-Hot Wheels icons, but again, something to work on for the second game. So there's tons of cars to choose from. They've got boatloads of design charm and authenticity, but this is a video game after all. And all of this is nothing if they don't play even better than they look. Thankfully, if you were to ask me, Hot Wheels Unleashed has not only the best physics in any Hot Wheels game, but almost perfectly captures exactly how you would imagine Hot Wheels racing would feel like. Brake to drift is one of the most controversial handling styles among the racing community. I've always been a fan of brake to drift when it's executed well, and this is one of the best executions of that mentality ever. What brake to drift in an arcade racer should do is make you feel like a hero at all times, even if it doesn't take a ton of skill to master. Pulling off a perfectly executed slide from leagues before corner entry, slowly pulling it to the apex, and then rocketing out with nitrous never gets old. And the best part is that that's pretty much just how racing is in Hot Wheels Unleashed. Once you start to learn the physics model and the tracks on offer here, sliding beside, behind, and blasting past other racers is legitimately the best base for gameplay in the whole of Hot Wheels. It's fantastic. I also really love just how much control you have over when your car goes airborne. Using both analog sticks to straighten it up again in just the right amount of time adds a little extra something to each race. Though I do have a minor grievance with cars and physics, which is that on some tracks you just can't drive too fast, or else it gets sent off the track into the pits of Delaware. Which to me pretty much goes against the Hot Wheels racing mantra of exuding speed and the pandemonious moment-to-moment gameplay on offer here. Now, I get this is more of a personal wish than a critique, but man do I ever wish that there was more to differentiate each car gameplay-wise. The only real difference is how certain vehicles use nitrous. However, I just can't help but yearn for the days of Beat That's power-ups, and think that it would be a tremendous step forward in successing Hot Wheels games if cars had more mechanics to learn, different strengths and weaknesses to counterbalance being down on existing stats, using skill-based playstyles to keep cars relevant. In the end, the core mechanics of the cars in Hot Wheels Unleashed are rock solid, more than enough to satisfy most Hot Wheels fans and racing game fans. But there's also plenty of room to take things to the next level, and on that same vein, let's move on to the tracks in Hot Wheels Unleashed. Racetracks in Hot Wheels games are the ultimate expression and culmination of what makes the racing experience so good. Games like World Race and Beat That have easily the most insane and creative scenes in arguably all of the racing genre. This is the only big area that Hot Wheels Unleashed just doesn't quite match up to its predecessors, but it's not for sake of what we have being necessarily poor. Not including the DLC locales, we have 5 main set pieces to choose from, and then a base for the track creator, which we'll touch on later. We have a basement, skate park, college campus, garage, and finally an under development skyscraper. None of these tracks are bad, at all. I'd even say they're good, but that's the issue. There aren't any tracks or set pieces here which truly just drop your jaw to the floor and leave it there. The approach taken for Unleashed was that of track mastery and learning all of the variants and little quirks of each one, which in its own right is a respectable and pretty well done approach, though that doesn't completely negate the want to have more exuberant tracks in combination with its focus on building player skill. There is one skill-based aspect that I really do like when it comes to the tracks however, and that's the traps. Whether it be a giant spider that can instantly halt your race with a shooting web, trackside fans with enough force to blow you right off the edge, or tornadoes that'll hold you or your enemies captive. The lack of car-based combat and action is almost made up for because these traps will easily destroy your entire race, meaning that keeping an eye out is always essential. To easier explain those earlier grievances with track design, especially in the earlier game, most set pieces follow the pattern of feeling locked in a room with some Hot Wheels tracks strewn about, and they feel limited because of that. What's really missing here is some really good depth and scale to these tracks, and giving the track some fresh air and room to breathe. If there is only one thing I could ask Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 to improve on, it would be without question to have some genuinely mental tracks. Because with these cars, this physics, and some bonkers tracks to tie it all together, you have a recipe for arcade racing in Nirvana. Now in terms of recipes, Hot Wheels Unleashed already gives you all of the ingredients to cook up tracks of your own in the track creator. The tools on offer within those preconceived rooms I mentioned earlier give you nearly endless roam to create whatever the inner child inside you can conjure up. While these rooms may lead to a more cramped feeling as I mentioned before, they really let you go wild, and the amount of freedom on offer here is near unmatched. I'm not much of a track creator myself, so my word can only mean so much, but going off of the other player-made tracks, it's pretty damn good. I just really don't like, however, that some of the coolest building pieces for the tracks are locked behind a DLC paywall. So this all covers the basic campaign and structure for Hot Wheels Unleashed, but in the modern day, you gotta have more than just that on offer. So what did Hot Wheels Unleashed bring to the table? When you just want to chill out in between races, you can head on over to the basement. It's really neat that you can take one of the existing track rooms and turn it into a fully customizable hangout suite. And it really is truly customizable, from walls, floors, furniture, hell, even the damn fridge. The basement is a really wicked concept, but there's a bit of a pressing issue. It's nearly useless. Sure, the basement you customize does change when you have races on that set piece, and the fact that the unique obstacles will show up gives you the opportunity for moe eyes everywhere. But how the ability to walk or at least place your favorite cars around the place and admire them is completely absent is genuinely baffling to me. The basement is simply just there for a bit of customization and an admittedly fun distraction, but once you mess about with it once or twice, it's just one of the features of all time. There's some other small side activities like Quick Race and Time Attack, which are perfect for if you just want to hop on for a short while and get a race or two done. And pray to the heavens, a modern game with split screen? Not only is it unheard of, but commendable in these days of abandoning all forms of local multiplayer. Now, we've been over Hot Wheels Unleashed as it exists in a vacuum by itself, but as the title of this video suggests, Unleashed accomplished something far more than to just be a good Hot Wheels game. We've been living in an era where racing games and their directive teams feel that shifting the focus and structure of those games from that of catering towards fans of the series to that of broadening the horizons in the general gaming community is the only way to move forwards. And as we've seen countless times within the past half a decade, this has done nothing but water down not only the games themselves, but muddy the community for the games as a whole as to where not a single player knows who these games are for. Try to appease everyone and you'll satisfy no one. Hot Wheels Unleashed said, alright, screw this, we're not diluting our game for sales. This is unapologetically a Hot Wheels game through and through, and the results? Long-term Hot Wheels fans and newcomers alike overwhelmingly enjoyed the experience given to them. And not only was it a success among the player base, commercially, Hot Wheels Unleashed blew past any of its predecessors and became the best-selling Hot Wheels game of all time just as quickly as it blasted onto the scene. And as of this year has sold over 2 million copies worldwide. Hot Wheels Unleashed is proof that if you make a compelling game, buyers will fly in. And what you end up with is a fanbase that genuinely cares, instead of forcing games on people who would have never even considered trying it beforehand, through Game Pass or EA Play, just for the sake of desperately appealing to as wide of an audience as possible in order to compensate for the amount of genuine fans you've lost through selling a game that has no main audience. This is Hot Wheels Unleashed's most important mission, and one that I for one am praying is evident enough that the current trope of open-ended, shallow numbers and stat-obsessed racers for people who can't even name 10 cars needs to die off. Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 is right around the corner, and if it can expand upon Hot Wheels Unleashed base, build up some of the existing facets of gameplay, add some more craziness, add some more drama, and polish up some of these little nuances of Unleashed, we have a hell of a game to look forwards to. We'll be reviewing Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 when Judgment Day comes, so if you want to be the first to watch that video, we kindly ask to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. And if you'd like to see more videos in the vein of this review, a like on the video goes further than you think. Though for now, thank you ever so much for watching. We hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day, and we'll see you all in the next video.